Welcome, chosen ones. Today's message is for you, the resilient souls who have risen above trials, defied expectations, and walked boldly into the light of your purpose. Have you noticed how the very people who once doubted, ignored, or underestimated you are now inexplicably captivated by your every move? It's more than fascination. It's a mix of admiration and envy, a silent acknowledgement of the greatness God has placed in you. If this resonates, don't forget to comment 999 below to declare your journey of victory and purpose. To all who continue to bless this channel through super thanks, I am deeply grateful for your incredible support. Your kindness fuels the mission to spread God's word and bring hope to those in need. You're not just supporters, you're partners in this divine purpose, and your impact shines brighter than words can express. Thank you for standing with me in faith and love. But here's the question that keeps us intrigued. Why are they so obsessed? What has caused their curiosity to transform into a fixation? It's not just about you, it's about what your life represents. Could it be that your success is a mirror reflecting their doubts, or that your silent perseverance speaks louder than words? Join me as we uncover the deeper truths behind this dynamic, exploring what their obsession reveals about them and how it aligns with God's greater plan for you. Get ready, chosen ones, because this is just the beginning of a journey that will inspire, empower, and affirm your divine calling. God's chosen ones, now they're obsessed with you and how you did it. They can't get enough. You dared to do what they couldn't, while they clung to the rules they were taught, rules that promised safety and success. You tore those rules apart and rewrote them entirely. They were told to play it safe, follow the crowd, and never question authority. But you chose a different path. You didn't just defy the rules, you created your own playbook, and somehow you succeeded beyond their wildest imagination. That's what truly unsettles them. You're living proof that the life they've spent years chasing might be built on nothing but fear and limitations. Think about it. How often do we see people blindly following the same old formula for success, even when it leaves them feeling trapped? They've been conditioned to believe that sticking to the script is the only way to rise. Yet here you are, someone who ripped up that script and achieved everything they were working for without conforming. It's no wonder they can't stop thinking about you. How did you break free while they stayed bound? How did you rise while they remained stuck? In the Bible, David's rise to kingship mirrors this journey. Saul, the reigning king, followed all the right rules, yet he lost favor with God. Meanwhile, David, a shepherd boy with no formal claim to the throne, defied expectations and was chosen to lead. 1 Samuel 16. How could someone so unconventional be chosen by God? Just like David, your story challenges the status quo, leaving people around you questioning everything they thought they knew. What truly frustrates them is how effortless you made it look. While they've worked tirelessly to fit into roles they were told to pursue, you refuse to step into any box at all. Their obsession isn't just about curiosity, it's born of envy and disbelief. Your success forces them to confront an uncomfortable truth. The rules they've been following might be nothing more than chains holding them back. Deep down they wonder, what if I could have broken free too? But instead of facing that truth, they choose to watch you obsessively. They analyze your every move, hoping to find a flaw or a shortcut that will justify their own hesitation. They whisper behind your back, searching for evidence that you got lucky or cheated the system. Yet no matter how hard they look, they find nothing. Why? Because you never needed their system to begin with, like Joseph in Egypt, who rose from a slave to Pharaoh's right hand by trusting in God's vision, Genesis 41. Your path was never about following human rules. It was about divine purpose. And here's the twist that keeps them awake at night. Their obsession isn't just about how you succeeded, it's about why they didn't. While they were busy following the crowd, you were carving out a path of your own. They wonder, what if I had dared to take that leap too? That lingering regret gnaws at them, but they'll never admit it. Instead, they study you from the shadows, hoping to uncover the secret to your freedom. Yet here's the truth they refuse to see. You didn't just break the rules, you exposed them as illusions. Just as Jesus challenged the Pharisees' rigid traditions, revealing that true righteousness comes from the heart, Matthew 23. You've shown that real success isn't found in blind obedience, but in authenticity and courage. The rules they worshipped, they were never real, and that's what terrifies them most. So now, they can't stop watching you. You've become their benchmark, their source of fascination and frustration. But the question remains, will they continue living in the shadows of rules that don't serve them? Or will they find the courage to break free themselves? Perhaps, like Nicodemus approaching Jesus at night, John 3, they'll finally muster the bravery to ask, "How did you do it?" Until then, they'll remain captivated by the life you've built. A life that shows them what's possible when you choose faith over fear. What they fail to see is that it wasn't easy at all. They weren't there for the sleepless nights, the countless sacrifices, or the moments when doubt whispered in your ear. All they see is the outcome, a success so radiant it blinds them to the work it took. Their obsession stems from the fact that your achievements make their own struggles seem trivial by comparison. They were conditioned to believe success had to be a grueling, drawn-out process, one that required endless validation and applause. But you sidestepped all that noise and quietly delivered results that made their excuses feel hollow. Isn't it fascinating how quickly people forget the price of greatness when they only see the reward? Your story reminds me of Nehemiah rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem. His enemies mocked and doubted him, yet he pressed on with determination, trusting God to provide strength. Nehemiah didn't pause to seek approval or validation. He let the finished wall speak for itself. Nehemiah 6:15-16. Like him, you chose to focus on the work, not the noise. Could this quiet resilience be what unsettles them most? What really shakes them isn't just what you achieved, it's what your success implies about their limitations. Your accomplishments force them to confront the possibility that the boundaries they accepted weren't real. Were the obstacles they complained about truly insurmountable, or were they simply too afraid to try? Like Peter stepping out of the boat to walk on water, Matthew 14:29, you showed that what seemed impossible was only waiting for someone bold enough to take the first step. Isn't it remarkable how one person's courage can reveal the fear holding others back? Then there's your confidence, steady, quiet, and unshakable. You didn't need to broadcast your efforts or demand applause along the way. Instead, you let your results do the talking. That kind of quiet power is utterly foreign to those who are used to over-explaining, overcompensating, and yet under-delivering. While they were busy chasing recognition, you were busy chasing purpose. And now, they can't help but be drawn to the stark contrast between your journey and theirs. But make no mistake, their obsession isn't rooted in admiration, it's haunted by regret. Your success has forced them to confront a truth they've avoided for years. They could have done more. They could have dared to dream bigger, work harder, and believe more deeply. But instead, they chose comfort over challenge, and now your achievements serve as a constant reminder of what they've left undone. Like the parable of the talents, Matthew 25:14-30, where the servant who buried his talent was condemned for not taking a risk, your story shines a light on their own hesitations. Could they have achieved more if they'd been willing to step out in faith? The nagging realization that they might have squandered their potential keeps you at the center of their thoughts. And as they replay your story in their minds, they're not just questioning your journey, they're questioning their own choices. So, here you are, the living proof that what they called impossible was only improbable for those unwilling to try. They can't stop thinking about you because deep down, they know their obsession isn't really about you. It's about the version of themselves they could have been. Will they continue to watch from the sidelines, or will your story finally inspire them to take a step of their own? Only time will tell. They doubted you. Some even mocked the idea that you could succeed. To them, you were the underdog, an easy target for their low expectations. They thought they had you all figured out, boxed into their predictions of mediocrity. But you didn't just rise above those predictions, you shattered them, leaving their assumptions in the dust. And now they can't stop obsessing over how you managed to prove them so painfully wrong. What stings them most isn't just your success. It's the fact that you succeeded without their approval. They were convinced their opinions mattered, that their doubts had the power to shape your destiny. But your growth didn't just defy their expectations, it completely invalidated their judgments. In the same way David, the youngest and seemingly least likely of Jesse's sons, was chosen by God to be king, 1 Samuel 16:7, you've shown that human judgment often misses the mark. They were so focused on appearances and assumptions that they failed to see the depth of your potential. Think about how many people doubted Moses when he was called to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. Even Moses doubted himself, but God saw beyond what others could. He saw a leader in the making, Exodus 3:11-12. Like Moses, your journey is a testament to the fact that other people's doubts don't determine your destiny. How often do we allow the doubts of others to limit what we believe about ourselves? Could it be that their judgments of you were more about their own insecurities than your actual potential? Each milestone you achieve feels like a defeat to them because it highlights just how wrong they were. They told themselves they understood your limits, but those limits existed only in their minds. Your growth forces them to confront an uncomfortable truth. They underestimated you because they never truly took the time to understand you. They were too focused on their own fears and inadequacies to recognize the greatness within you. How many opportunities have they missed in life because they were blinded by their own biases? Their obsession with you isn't admiration, it's a desperate attempt to figure out what they overlooked. They replay your story over and over, searching for the moment they misjudged you, as if finding that answer will somehow heal their bruised egos. But no matter how hard they look, they won't find what they're searching for. The truth is simple and painful. They judged you from a place of fear. Fear that someone they dismissed could rise higher than they ever dared to. The Bible reminds us not to despise small beginnings. Zechariah 4:10. Those who mocked your humble start didn't realize that God often uses the unexpected to accomplish the extraordinary. Your story is living proof of this principle. While they were busy doubting, you were busy growing, quietly, steadily, and with purpose. And now, your very existence is a mirror reflecting back their own lack of vision. Every victory you claim feels like a loss to them, not because you took something from them, but because it exposes their failure to see what was possible. What drives their obsession isn't just curiosity, it's regret. Regret that they doubted you, underestimated you, and dismissed you. Regret that their own insecurities clouded their judgment. And perhaps deep down, regret that they didn't believe in themselves enough to take the risks you took. Your growth forces them to ask, what if I had dared to believe in myself like that? It's a question they may never find the courage to answer. So here they are, watching your every move, not out of admiration, but out of discomfort. They can't admit it to you, or even to themselves, but your journey has become a constant reminder of their own lack of faith, both in you and in themselves. And as they wrestle with that realization, the question remains, will they let your story inspire them to change, or will they stay trapped in the comfort of their doubts? Only time will tell. They believed they were the gatekeepers of your destiny, the ones who held the keys to your success. They built the rules, defined the standards, and convinced themselves that no one could rise without their approval. To succeed, you'd have to conform to their expectations, seek their validation, and wait for their permission. Or so they thought. But you shattered their illusion. You didn't wait for their blessing or bend to their authority. You saw the cracks in their system, walked right past their so-called gates, and built something extraordinary on your own terms. And that's what keeps them up at night. You thrived without their approval, exposing the fragility of the very system they believed made them powerful. The authority they clung to so tightly. You showed it was never real in the first place. It's reminiscent of how Jesus overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple, challenging a system that profited off the illusion of power and control. Matthew 21:12-13. You too disrupted a system built on ego and manipulation, and it left them shaken. How could someone succeed without playing by their rules? How could someone rise without their validation? These questions haunt them because your success forces them to confront an unsettling truth. The power they claim to have over others is irrelevant to those bold enough to step outside their control. What truly unsettles them is not just that you succeeded, but that you thrived in ways they never imagined possible, while they spent years reinforcing their authority and demanding approval from others. You quietly forged your own path. Like Nehemiah rebuilding Jerusalem's walls despite relentless opposition, you trusted in a greater purpose, proving that human gatekeepers cannot block divine destiny. Nehemiah 4:1-6. Could it be that their so-called authority was never as solid as they thought? Your rise suggests that the barriers they erected were more symbolic than real. They replay your story endlessly, searching for answers. How did you defy their expectations? Where did they go wrong? But the truth is, they didn't miscalculate a step you took. They underestimated you. Their entire system is rooted in ego, control, and the belief that no one can thrive without their blessing. They never imagined someone could bypass their approval because they themselves depend so deeply on external validation. How often do we see people projecting their insecurities onto others, believing everyone operates the same way? Your secret, however, is simple. You didn't need their approval because you approved of yourself. You believed in your vision, your worth, and your purpose when no one else did. Just as the Apostle Paul declared, "If God is for us, who can be against us?" Romans 8:31. You understood that true success isn't determined by human opinion, but by divine alignment. And that's the truth they find hardest to accept. Now, they can't stop watching you. They dissect your every move, hoping to find a loophole, a hidden advantage that makes sense to them, but they find nothing. Your success wasn't handed to you. It wasn't a product of their system or anyone's permission. It was earned through courage, authenticity, and an unwavering refusal to conform. While they were busy maintaining control, you were busy walking in freedom. And here's what terrifies them most. You've become living proof that their power is irrelevant to those who dare to believe in themselves. Your story challenges the narrative they've spent years building, forcing them to question their own relevance. Like Pharaoh clinging to his power as the Israelites walked free, Exodus 14, they can't admit the truth, but they can't ignore it either. You represent the very thing they fear. Proof that their approval was never a prerequisite for success. So they watch, obsess, and analyze, hoping to find a flaw that will restore their sense of control. But they won't find one. Your journey has exposed a deeper truth. The only validation that matters comes from within and above. And while they may never admit it, your example will haunt them as a constant reminder of the power of self-belief, courage, and faith. They've spent their entire lives crafting an identity rooted in fragile foundations, societal expectations, borrowed beliefs, and the constant need for external validation. Then you appeared confident, self-reliant, and unapologetically authentic. Your very presence feels like a floodlight exposing the cracks in everything they've built. This isn't just admiration or envy, it's something much deeper. You've triggered an existential question they can't ignore. Who am I really? Your confidence serves as a reminder of the risks they were too afraid to take. Your self-reliance underscores their dependence on others to define their worth. Your authenticity strips away the illusion of the carefully curated masks they wear just to fit in. And the most painful part, they know it. Watching you thrive feels like standing in front of a mirror reflecting their insecurities, the version of themselves they've tried to suppress. Could it be that they've spent all this time living for others instead of living for themselves? It's reminiscent of the story of Gideon in Judges 6. Initially, Gideon doubted his ability, seeing himself as the least in his family. But God called him to lead with strength and authenticity. Imagine the people around Gideon, those who likely questioned their own lives when they saw him rise. Similarly, your journey challenges those who cling to the safety of their comfort zones. How many opportunities do people miss because they fear stepping into their true identity? This is why they can't stop thinking about you. They dissect your every move, not just to figure out your success, but to make sense of their own discomfort. Why does your confidence unsettle them so deeply? It's because you're not just a person to them, you're a symbol. You represent everything they've convinced themselves they couldn't be, everything they've told themselves wasn't possible. Deep down, they're starting to realize a hard truth. They've been living a life that doesn't feel like their own. The decisions they once thought were safe now feel like a cage. The beliefs they clung to so tightly now seem hollow. Your existence challenges their identity in ways they weren't prepared for and dismantles the foundation they built it on. Like the rich young ruler in Matthew 19:16-22, they're confronted with the painful realization that what they've been holding on to may not bring them true fulfillment. How often do we cling to false securities only to realize they've been holding us back all along? Their obsession with you isn't just about you, it's about their internal struggle. Every step you take makes them question their own choices. Every success you achieve makes them wonder what they've been missing. They're searching for answers to questions they're too afraid to ask out loud. What if I've been wrong? What if the life I've built isn't the one I truly want? And while they may never admit it, your authenticity has shaken something loose within them. You've awakened a desire they buried long ago, the desire to live freely, unapologetically, and authentically. But instead of embracing that truth, they project their struggle onto you. Your life becomes the stage for their unresolved doubts, their unasked questions, and their unmet potential. Like the Pharisees who couldn't comprehend Jesus' freedom from their rigid laws, John 8:32, they can't fully understand the liberation your authenticity represents, but even as they resist it, they can't look away. Your life is a challenge to their comfort, a confrontation with their fears, and a call to step into something greater. And so, they watch, obsess, and analyze. Not because they want to celebrate you, but because they're desperate to make sense of themselves. What they may never say aloud is this: your courage to live authentically has planted a seed in them. Whether they water that seed or let it wither is up to them. But your example will remain, a constant reminder of the freedom that comes from living in alignment with who you truly are. They thrive in a world of predictability. They like their narratives tidy, their outcomes certain, and their people easy to mold. But then there's you, the one they can't categorize, control, or even fully comprehend. You defy their expectations at every turn. Just when they think they've pinned you down, you make a move that completely shatters their assumptions. You are the variable they didn't account for, and that keeps them up at night. Your unpredictability has become their obsession because it challenges the foundation of their control. These are people who build their lives around understanding and managing others, believing that everyone fits into a neat little box. To them, people are puzzles to solve or systems to manipulate. But you're an enigma they can't crack, a mystery that refuses to play by their rules. Your next move is never obvious, and your motives remain entirely your own. Could it be that their need to control others is really a reflection of their inability to control themselves? In the Bible, Jesus' actions baffled the Pharisees. They couldn't predict him, couldn't trap him, and certainly couldn't control him. When he healed on the Sabbath or associated with tax collectors and sinners, he defied every rule they held sacred, leaving them angry and confused. Matthew 12:1-14. Like Jesus, your refusal to conform leaves others grappling with their own inability to impose order on your life. How often do we see people struggling when their rigid frameworks are challenged by someone who chooses freedom over conformity? What rattles them even more than your unpredictability is your unreachability. It's not just that they can't physically pin you down, it's deeper. Emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually, you exist in a realm beyond their influence. You don't rely on their validation, nor do you play into their games. Their usual tactics, manipulation, persuasion, guilt, fall flat against your quiet self-assurance. And that infuriates them because they've built their power on the assumption that everyone craves their approval. Your detachment is what unsettles them most. You've achieved a level of independence they can't fathom. Like Paul, who declared, "I am not trying to please people. If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Galatians 1:10. You've chosen to live free from the chains of others' opinions. Your ability to walk away, to move without explanation or justification, leaves them grasping at straws. How do you control someone who doesn't need anything from you? The answer is simple: you can't. And so they fixate. They watch your every move, dissecting your actions, hoping to find a way to decode you. They analyze, speculate, and gossip, convinced that if they dig deep enough, they'll find a way to understand you and, in turn, control you. But the harder they try, the more elusive you become. Your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's liberation. It's the freedom to live on your own terms, unbound by the expectations of others. This freedom is something they've never known, and that's why it terrifies them. Their lives are governed by the need for control over their image, their relationships, and their surroundings. But you are a reminder that true power comes not from controlling others, but from mastering yourself. Like the wind that blows where it pleases, as described in John 3:8, your movements are guided by something intangible, something they can't predict or constrain. Could it be that your freedom challenges their deepest fears about their own lack of autonomy? Their obsession with you reveals more about them than it does about you. They're not just unsettled by your choices, they're threatened by what your choices represent. You are living proof that it's possible to exist outside the system they've worked so hard to maintain. And while they may never admit it, they envy the peace that comes from walking in your own truth. So they watch, analyze, and speculate, desperate to find a way to explain you. But here's the irony. The very freedom they can't understand is the same freedom they secretly crave. Your unpredictability forces them to confront their own fears, their own need for control, and their own inability to let go. And as long as you continue to move authentically and unapologetically, they'll remain captivated, haunted by the realization that they'll never truly understand the kind of freedom you embody. They've watched you face storms that should have destroyed you. They saw you stumble under the weight of challenges that seemed insurmountable, moments where even they thought, "This is it. This is the end." Some even celebrated, convinced that your defeat was inevitable. But every single time, you did what they never expected. You rose again. And not just as you were before, but stronger, wiser, and more unstoppable than ever. Your resilience confounds them. It's not admiration that drives their obsession, it's sheer confusion. You've shattered the narrative they've been taught to believe, that success belongs only to those who conform, that failure is final, and that strength without their approval is unsustainable. Yet here you are, thriving despite every roadblock, dismantling their assumptions with every step you take. How is it possible for someone they dismissed, underestimated, and even tried to suppress, to break through barriers that were designed to hold you back? Your story mirrors that of Joseph in Genesis. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and imprisoned unjustly, Joseph faced trial after trial that should have ended his journey. But each time he rose, growing stronger in his faith and character, until he stood second only to Pharaoh. Genesis 41:41. Like Joseph, your resilience reveals a strength they cannot understand, a strength that doesn't depend on circumstances, but on an unshakable inner foundation. Could it be that your trials, like his, were preparing you for something greater all along? What baffles them even more is how you handle these victories. You don't beg for sympathy, crumble under criticism, or seek applause for your strength. Instead, you adapt, you learn, and you grow, quietly and powerfully. While they have been conditioned to avoid risks and failures at all costs, you've leaned into them, treating setbacks as stepping stones instead of stumbling blocks. How often do people miss the opportunity to grow because they're too afraid to fail? To them, resilience is a foreign concept. They've spent their lives avoiding hardship, believing that strength comes from staying within the confines of safety. But your journey exposes a truth they're desperate to avoid. Strength doesn't come from avoiding challenges. It comes from enduring them. Just as Paul wrote in Romans 5:3-4, "We rejoice in our sufferings, knowing that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character produces hope." Your ability to embrace adversity and rise stronger terrifies them because it challenges their very way of life. And it's not just your victories that trouble them, it's the way you achieve them. You don't play by their rules, and yet you keep winning. You've shown them that the system they've built isn't invincible, that the obstacles they thought were insurmountable were never real barriers to begin with. They're left grappling with the uncomfortable realization that their own fear of failure has kept them trapped in a cycle of mediocrity. Could they have risen too? Had they dared to face their struggles instead of avoiding them? Their obsession isn't just about trying to figure you out. It's about trying to figure out themselves. Your resilience forces them to confront truths they'd rather ignore, that their conformity has limited them, that their avoidance of hardship has weakened them, and that their dependence on the system has made them vulnerable. Every time you rise, it feels like a personal defeat to them because it exposes their lack of courage to do the same. And now they can't stop watching you. They analyze every move, hoping to find a secret, a shortcut, or an explanation that makes sense to them. But here's what they don't realize. Your strength isn't about shortcuts or strategies. It's about faith, perseverance, and the willingness to keep going when everything seems lost. like David standing against Goliath, 1 Samuel 17:45-47. Your power comes from a source they can't see and don't understand. Here's the truth they won't admit, but can't deny. They can't stop you because you are unstoppable. Your resilience has become a beacon, not just of survival, but of thriving despite every challenge. And while they may never understand it, your story has already proven one thing. Strength isn't about avoiding battles, it's about walking through them and emerging victorious. They may never admit it, but deep down, they know they're witnessing something extraordinary, something they'll never forget. And that's why they can't look away. Your success has become the mirror they dread, one that reflects truths they've spent their lives avoiding. Every step you take, every milestone you reach, forces them to confront the uncomfortable reality of their own mediocrity. Your life highlights everything they could have been, everything they could have achieved, if only they dared to try. And that realization fills them not with admiration, but with something far darker, a toxic cocktail of regret, envy, and self-loathing. They see in you a boldness they never had. Where you moved fearlessly toward your goals, they hesitated, held back by fear and the lure of comfort. While you took risks, embraced failure as a stepping stone and turned setbacks into lessons, they clung to safety. Their lives were governed by the need for predictability, and in doing so, they forfeited the very growth that risk brings. Like the servant in the parable of the talents who buried his gift instead of investing it, Matthew 25:24-30. They chose the illusion of security over the possibility of greatness. And now, your courage and determination stand as a glaring indictment of their wasted potential. Every victory you achieve reminds them of the chances they let slip away, the dreams they were too afraid to chase, the opportunities they dismissed as too risky. And yet, instead of confronting this painful truth, they project their dissatisfaction onto you. Why take responsibility for their inaction when it's easier to turn you into the villain? Your achievements become the scapegoat for their regret, their resentment a shield against the accountability they refuse to face. The truth is, your success doesn't just challenge their choices, it dismantles the illusions they've built around those choices. They told themselves it was better to stay safe, that failure was to be avoided at all costs, that mediocrity was acceptable if it meant avoiding risk. But then there's you, thriving because you rejected those lies. Could it be that their resentment toward you is really resentment toward themselves? How often do people project their inner conflicts onto others instead of facing the truth head-on? Your story reminds me of the Israelites hesitating to enter the Promised Land because of fear. Despite God's assurance, they doubted and chose to remain in the wilderness. Numbers 13:31-14:4. You, on the other hand, have stepped boldly into your promised land, refusing to let fear hold you back. And just as the Israelites' hesitation cost them, your boldness highlights the price others pay for their unwillingness to act. How many opportunities have been lost because of fear disguised as caution? What makes their obsession with you even more intense is the gap between what they wish they were and what they've allowed themselves to become. Deep down, they know that you are everything they aspire to be, but lack the courage to become. It's not your success they truly hate. It's the reflection of their own inaction and mediocrity that your success illuminates. That's why they can't stop fixating on you, analyzing your every move, and trying to tear you down. It's not about you, it's about the shame they feel, but refuse to confront. Like Cain, who hated Abel not because of anything Abel did, but because Abel's offering highlighted Cain's own shortcomings. Genesis 4:3-8. Their resentment toward you is rooted in their own dissatisfaction. Instead of learning from your example, they choose to direct their anger outward, hoping to dull the sting of their inner conflict. But the truth is, their resentment does nothing to diminish your success. It only exposes the mediocrity they've chosen to accept. What they fail to see is that your success isn't a condemnation of their failures. It's a testament to the rewards of courage and persistence. Your victories are not about their losses. They're about the risks you were willing to take, the fears you were willing to face, and the perseverance that carried you through. And no matter how much they try to project their insecurities onto you, their dissatisfaction will remain until they confront it within themselves. So they watch, obsess, and criticize, hoping to find flaws in you to justify their own choices. But the truth they won't admit is this: your success is a beacon. It shines a light on what's possible when fear is overcome, when risks are embraced, and when mediocrity is rejected. They can choose to let that light guide them or let it torment them. The choice is theirs, but your story will continue to challenge everything they've chosen to avoid. And that's a truth they'll have to live with, whether they admit it or not. While they ran in circles, chasing fleeting trends and imitating what seemed popular, you were busy creating something extraordinary, something that didn't exist before you envisioned it. You didn't follow their blueprints or rely on what was already in motion. Instead, you forged your own path, crafted your own vision, and turned what seemed like nothing into something of immense value. And now, what you've built stands as a testament to your creativity, eclipsing anything they could have imagined. What unsettles them most is your ability to create value seemingly out of thin air. Your originality highlights their lack of imagination. While they spent their time mimicking others, trying to fit into molds someone else designed, you dared to step outside the box entirely. It reminds me of the story of Noah. While others mocked him for building the ark, he followed a vision no one else could see, creating something that saved humanity. Genesis 6:13-22. How often do people dismiss creativity simply because they lack the vision to understand it? They are obsessed with you not because they admire your ingenuity, but because your success exposes the limits of their own thinking. They copied, conformed, and chased trends, yet ended up with nothing more than recycled ideas. Meanwhile, you gave the world something it didn't even realize it needed. Your innovation turned a void into something valuable, and in doing so, you showed them what they missed. That true greatness doesn't come from imitation, but from bold, original thinking. Your story reminds us of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, Matthew 14:13-21. Where others saw scarcity, he saw abundance. Similarly, you saw opportunity where others only saw emptiness. Could it be that their frustration with you stems from their inability to see beyond the obvious, to tap into the potential hidden in the unknown? Your success is a glaring reminder that their strategy of chasing trends and playing it safe was never going to lead to true greatness. They followed the crowd, thinking it would lead to success, but instead it kept them trapped in a cycle of mediocrity. Meanwhile, your ability to innovate and bring something new into the world has left them both awestruck and unsettled. How do they reconcile the fact that their safe path didn't work while your bold risks paid off in ways they can't even fathom? What's even more fascinating is that they can't figure out how you did it. How did you see potential in what they overlooked? How did you create something so valuable from what they dismissed as nothing? They fixate on you, analyzing your moves, hoping to uncover a formula they can replicate. But what they fail to realize is that your success isn't just about strategy. It's about vision. It's about the ability to see what others can't and to act on it fearlessly. Their obsession isn't admiration, it's envy mixed with regret. Deep down, they know that your creativity represents a level of boldness and originality they never dared to embrace. Like the Pharisees questioning Jesus' miracles, their fixation on you comes not from understanding, but from frustration that they can't replicate what you've done. They wonder, why didn't I think of that? Why couldn't I do that? But instead of looking inward for answers, they project their dissatisfaction onto you. Your creativity has redefined what value looks like. You didn't just follow the rules of the game, you rewrote them. And now they can't stop watching, not because they're inspired, but because they're haunted by the realization that they'll never catch up. Like Peter walking on water, you stepped out in faith while they stayed in the boat. Matthew 14:28-31. Your willingness to embrace uncertainty is what sets you apart, and it's something they can't duplicate. So they remain fixated, analyzing and speculating, hoping to find a way to replicate your success. But they won't, because what you've built didn't come from imitation. It came from authenticity, bold vision, and the courage to take risks where others saw only limitations. Your story is a powerful reminder that true value comes not from following the crowd, but from daring to lead. And while they may never admit it, your originality has shaken them to their core, forcing them to question everything they thought they knew about success. That's why they can't look away. They watched, waiting for your pain to destroy you. They assumed your struggles would crush you under their weight, forcing you to surrender to life's hardships. But instead of breaking, you did what they never imagined possible. You turned your pain into power. Every setback, every failure, every heartache became fuel for your ascent. While they wallowed in self-pity and let their defeats define them, you were quietly transforming your suffering into strength, turning each trial into a stepping stone toward greatness. You refuse to let pain define you, and that's what they can't understand. They're fixated on you, not because of your accomplishments, but because of your resilience. When life knocked you down, you didn't stay there. You didn't make excuses or allow your pain to become a permanent identity. Instead, you stood back up, stronger and more determined than before, using every hardship as a tool for growth. Isn't it remarkable how some people see pain as an end while others see it as a beginning? Your story echoes the journey of Job, who endured unimaginable loss but never allowed his pain to strip him of his faith. In the end, Job's steadfastness was rewarded with restoration beyond what he had lost. Job 42:10. Like Job, your strength in the face of suffering has become a beacon, a reminder that pain isn't the end of the story. It's the catalyst for something greater. Could it be that the struggles we endure are often preparing us for blessings we can't yet see? To them, your ability to transcend suffering isn't just inspiring, it's bewildering. They've spent their lives letting pain trap them in cycles of victimhood and self-doubt. They allowed their struggles to become the bars of a prison they never learned how to escape. But you broke those chains. You didn't just survive your pain, you transformed it into purpose. How often do people miss out on growth because they view pain as punishment rather than preparation? Your journey forces them to confront a truth they've been avoiding, that suffering doesn't have to define us. It can refine us. Your resilience exposes their own powerlessness, their refusal to confront the pain they carry, and their inability to rise above it. They wonder, how do you keep going? How do you keep rising when everything around you is designed to break you? Your strength is a mystery they can't solve, because it's rooted in something they don't possess: faith, courage, and the will to transform. Their obsession with you isn't just about what you've achieved, it's about what you've become. Every time they see you overcome another obstacle, it forces them to question their own limitations. Why couldn't they rise above their struggles the way you have? Why did they let their pain define them while you used yours as a launching pad? Like the Apostle Paul, who wrote, "We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed but not in despair." 2 Corinthians 4:8. You've shown them that the greatest victories often come from the hardest battles. What truly haunts them is that you've done what they never could. You've turned life's darkest moments into your brightest victories. While they allowed their hardships to hold them back, you let yours propel you forward. Every triumph you achieve reminds them of the potential they squandered, the opportunities they missed, and the strength they never cultivated. Could their fixation on you be less about envy and more about regret? And so, they watch. They analyze every step you take, not just because they admire your resilience, but because they long for it. Your ability to create meaning from suffering, to rise from the ashes stronger than before, is something they desperately wish they could replicate. But here's the truth they won't admit. Your strength comes not from avoiding pain, but from facing it head-on. Your ability to transform hardship into purpose isn't just a skill, it's a choice they've been too afraid to make. Your journey is a reminder that pain isn't the end, it's the beginning of something new. Like Joseph, who told his brothers, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." Genesis 50:20. You've taken what was meant to break you and turned it into a foundation for greatness. That's why they can't stop watching. Your life challenges them to rethink their own. And whether they admit it or not, your story has shown them that pain isn't a barrier, it's the gateway to transformation. Your success isn't just a win, it feels like a personal insult to them. It's not only that you've achieved greatness, it's that you've done it despite everything they did to stop you. They tried to block your path, undermine your reputation, and sabotage your efforts. But their attempts didn't work. In fact, they had the opposite effect. They became the fuel for your rise. Now, here you are, thriving in ways they never expected, and they can't stand it. To them, your success isn't just about what you've accomplished. It's undeniable proof of their failure. Every move they made to stop you only propelled you further forward, and deep down they know it. They know that their inability to derail you highlights a harsh truth about themselves. Their power over you was always an illusion. What does it say about them, after all, that the obstacles they created only made you stronger? Could it be that their efforts to break you revealed more about their own weaknesses than about your strength? This dynamic is reminiscent of the story of Joseph and his brothers. They sold Joseph into slavery, thinking they could destroy his dreams. Yet every setback he faced only positioned him closer to his destiny. In the end, Joseph rose to power in Egypt, and his success became a testament to God's favor and resilience. Genesis 50:20. Like Joseph, your rise serves as a reminder that no amount of sabotage can stop someone who is aligned with a greater purpose. What truly drives them mad is that your success exposes a bitter truth. They lost. Every time you achieve another milestone, it's a silent yet undeniable reminder that they failed to control you. While they were busy trying to block your path, you were building something remarkable. Your achievements are not just victories, they are statements. They scream that you never needed their approval, their validation, or their permission. What they hoped would be your downfall became your stepping stone. Your growth is a mirror, reflecting their own stagnation, and that's a reflection they can't escape. Every success you achieve forces them to confront the uncomfortable reality that while they were focused on stopping you, they neglected their own growth. How many opportunities did they miss while they were busy obsessing over yours? How many times did their attempts to undermine you blind them to their own potential? Their fixation on you isn't about admiration, it's about resentment. Every victory you claim feels like a personal defeat to them, because it reminds them of the fight they thought they could win, but lost. Like Saul obsessing over David, their inability to stop your rise has become an all-consuming frustration. 1 Samuel 18:7-9. What happens when someone realizes they've spent their energy fighting a battle they were never meant to win? What makes it even harder for them to accept is that you've done it all without bending to their will. You didn't seek their approval, and you didn't play by their rules. Instead, you carved your own path and thrived despite their interference. That freedom, that independence, is something they don't understand, and it terrifies them. Could their obsession with you stem from their fear of acknowledging that they never had control over you in the first place? And now, every time you rise, it's a blow to their ego. They'll never admit it, but they're haunted by the fact that they were never able to break you. While they were plotting your downfall, you were proving them wrong at every turn. Like the walls of Jericho that came down, not because of the might of the city's defenders, but because of the faith and determination of the Israelites. Joshua 6:20. Your success has left their defenses crumbled, so they fixate. They replay your victories, dissect your strategies, and analyze your every move, hoping to find some way to make sense of how you succeeded when they thought they had all the power. But they'll never find the answer they're looking for, because the truth is simple. You succeeded not because of them, but in spite of them. Your success is a reflection of your resilience, your determination, and your refusal to be defined by anyone else's limitations. In the end, their obsession is a constant reminder of their defeat. Every time they see you rise, they're forced to acknowledge a truth they've been trying to avoid. They lost the fight they thought they could win, and that loss, more than anything else, is why they can't stop watching. Your silence has become your greatest weapon, and it's driving them to the brink. In a world where everyone seems desperate to broadcast their every thought, action, or achievement, your refusal to join the noise is a mystery they can't unravel. They thrive on chaos, arguments, gossip, and endless justifications. But you've denied them the satisfaction. Instead of explaining yourself or engaging with their provocations, you've chosen silence. And that silence speaks louder than any words ever could. They can't handle the fact that you don't play their game. When people criticize you, question your motives, or try to pull you into their drama, they expect a reaction. They want you to argue, defend, or prove them wrong. But your lack of response flips the script entirely. By giving them nothing, no energy, no explanation, you force them to sit with their own noise, their own insecurities. And isn't that the hardest thing for people who thrive on chaos? To sit in the silence they didn't anticipate. It reminds me of how Jesus responded when confronted by his accusers. In the face of baseless accusations, he chose silence, letting his actions speak louder than words. When Pilate asked him, "Do you not hear how many things they testify against you?" Jesus gave no reply. Matthew 27:12-14. That silence wasn't weakness, it was authority. By refusing to defend himself, Jesus left his accusers to wrestle with their own actions. Could your silence, like his, be a reflection of strength rather than submission? Your silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. Every move you make is deliberate, and they know it. That's why they obsess over you, analyzing every action and overthinking every decision, desperate to find cracks in your armor. But the less you give them, the more hooked they become. It's a paradox they can't escape. The quieter you are, the louder their curiosity grows. How often do people mistake silence for weakness when it's actually the ultimate display of control? What truly unsettles them is that your silence robs them of power. When you refuse to engage, you deny them the satisfaction of controlling the narrative. Instead, you let your results do the talking. While they're making noise, chasing distractions, and seeking validation, you're quietly building succeeding, and growing. Your actions speak with a clarity their words never could. Could it be that the loudest voice in the room is never the strongest, but the one that doesn't need to shout? Their obsession isn't about admiration, it's about frustration. They can't figure you out because they don't understand the strength it takes to remain silent. They've built their identity around noise, filling every moment with arguments and explanations. But you've shown them that true power lies in restraint, like David refusing to retaliate against Saul, even when given the opportunity, 1 Samuel 24:10-12. Your refusal to engage reflects a strength they'll never comprehend. And here's the irony: the more they talk, the more they reveal their obsession with you. Every rumor they spread, every criticism they lob, only highlights their inability to let go. While they're stuck in a loop of speculation, you're free to focus on what truly matters: your growth, your goals, and your vision. They don't realize that in their attempts to pull you down, they've only shone a spotlight on their own insecurities. Your silence terrifies them because it's unshakable. They can't manipulate it, distort it, or control it. And while they scramble to decipher your motives, you've already won. Like the Israelites circling Jericho, you've let your actions and your persistence speak louder than any argument could. Joshua 6:15-16. Your silence isn't passive, it's powerful, and that power leaves them questioning everything they thought they understood about strength. In the end, your success is their greatest enigma. Every boundary you push and every victory you achieve serves as a stark reminder of what they failed to accomplish. While they were busy making noise, you were creating something extraordinary. Your journey proves that success isn't about following the crowd or playing it safe. It's about daring to rise above, turning silence into strength, and achieving what others believe to be impossible. That's why they can't stop watching, can't stop wondering, and can't stop obsessing. Your silence has spoken volumes, and its message is one they'll never forget. Your story is a radiant testament to the incredible work God is doing in your life, an undeniable declaration of resilience, purpose, and unstoppable favor. For those who can't seem to look away, it's because your light exposes their shadows. Your boldness, authenticity, and unapologetic rise challenge the limits they've placed on their own lives. Yet, as they obsess over your every move, remember this: their fixation isn't admiration, it's rooted in fear. Fear that your unwavering faith, your ability to overcome adversity, and the victories you've achieved through God's grace reflect a life they secretly yearn for, but lack the courage to pursue. Here's the beautiful truth: you've already won. The moment their obsession began, their defeat was sealed. No amount of envy, scheming, or negativity can touch the foundation God has built within you. They cannot steal your growth, nor can they control the narrative you've so powerfully rewritten with God's guidance. Every step you take forward, every blessing you receive, is a reminder to them and to you of the divine hand shaping your life. Let this be your encouragement as you continue to rise. You're not here to please the crowd or appease the critics. You are here to glorify God, fulfill His purpose, and walk boldly in the destiny He has prepared for you. Their obsession is simply confirmation that you are chosen. So keep thriving, keep shining, and keep moving forward, knowing that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. With God leading your path, there is nothing and no one that can stand in your way. If this message has touched your heart, if you feel the power and truth in every word, let's continue this journey together. Don't let this be the last time you hear a message that fuels your fire. Subscribe to this channel now to uncover more wisdom, find deeper encouragement, and keep building the faith that makes you unstoppable. This is just the beginning. Together, We'll unlock the tools and truths to help you rise even higher. If you feel led to support this ministry, your donation through Super Thanks would mean the world to us. It's through your generosity that we can keep sharing these powerful messages of faith, resilience, and God's promises. But whether you donate or not, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Your time, presence, and engagement are the greatest gifts, and I don't take them lightly. Before you go, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs this encouragement, and leave a comment below. Your voice matters, and your thoughts inspire this growing community of believers. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and join us as we continue to explore the truths that strengthen our faith and guide our lives. As you step back into your day, may God bless you abundantly. May He give you the strength to keep shining, the courage to keep moving forward, and the peace to know that you are chosen for a purpose far greater than you can imagine. Remember, the best is yet to come. Stay blessed and never stop walking in the light of God's love and favor.